Wojo Wojciechowski!
We didn't get to like. Thank you, thank you. We are so excited. Thank you all. You could have been anywhere and you chose to be here to support community engagement. Thank you so much for coming out. So Where the People Meet, again, is about community engagement. And many of you know I started Evanston Live TV back in, seems like a long time now, 2016. And then I felt, it's time to broaden it. It's time to expand. And I didn't want to be in front of the camera anymore. So, that'll come up later. But I wanted more perspectives, and I really wanted to involve the community more. Every political leader I've spoken to, they said community engagement is so needed. It's so needed right now. So I said, okay, then we need to do something. We need to do something. So I am happy to share this stage with these two beautiful men right here, Sebastian and Wojo. Tell the people a little bit about who you are.
Thank you. And it's so fantastic to see the beautiful audience that we have in front of us. Thank you again for all coming. A little bit about myself. Born and raised in Evanston. This is a place that I've called home for a very long time. I started getting really involved in this community when I ran for mayor of Evanston back in 2020 to 2021. It was a fantastic experience, and since then, I've now become the president of Community Alliance for Better Government. I mean, I do this work.
Yes.
Thank you. I do this work because this community made me into the person I am today. And for that, I'm truly thankful. And it's the reason why you all are here too. You all care about this community, and the folks who are in this audience and are watching online are here because they care. So again, thank you all for coming. And I'm also joined up here by my good friend, Wojo. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I agree. Thank you for coming. I'm actually been blessed by Malika when she interviewed me. I am affiliated with the American Legion Post 42 on Central Street, and I'm true Chicagoan all my life. 22 years in the military, worked for the CTA, so I'm bound by the state of Illinois and Chicago. Lane Tech graduate, Triton College graduate. I love living in Chicago. I am been a member of the Post for 16 years. I've seen a number of different events transpire, both on the community level and community, state, and national level that involve everyday lives of different residents and how it affects them. And when Malika asked if I would consider being on the panel, I said absolutely, because bottom line, it's all about community activity. It's the involvement factor that if you want to have a vested interest in your community, you either speak up, act up, and it's not in a bad way, but it's just about that involvement that needs to be addressed.
Definitely. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of our other co-hosts can't be here today, but we're going to continue having some of the difficult and sometimes uncomfortable conversations that we plan to have on this show.
Yeah, we're dedicated to having many views, many perspectives, not just promoting one. So that is very, very important for the people who sit at this table, is to be accepting of that.
Definitely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to be covering issues, topics, again, that are uncomfortable, both that come from the national level and the local level. Because quite frankly, we've seen time and time again that there are things that happen on the national level that are completely intertwined and intersect with what's going on even here in this community on the ground. So we're here to have this conversation, whether or not we agree or disagree.
Absolutely. I mean, the three of us come from different realities, whether by education or work experience or the affiliation of our communities. Like I said, I feel blessed that I've been invited. But yes, I think that it's something, it's paramount having community activity, and getting residents involved.
We do have an awesome community here in Evanston. I want to say that this was sponsored by several right here. Just want to support community engagement. We really, really appreciate it.
Definitely. Yeah. We have a percentage of our sponsorships that are going to climate action, mental health, journalism, and the arts. And again, as Malika just said, this goes to show the type of community that we're in, that we have folks in and around Evanston that are committed to uplifting our community.
And speaking of active leaders, I believe we have a few messages from some amazing leaders.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, a proud member of the Evanston community. I have been living in Evanston about 50 years. I can't think of a better place to live. And I want to thank Malika Gardner for launching what is called Where the People Meet TV. And that is going to be a series that you can participate in. All of us can participate in a conversation in Evanston. Issues that are important, issues that are fun. We want people of all ages to have a place to go that's all our own. So I am very excited. You should see this as a great opportunity for you, yourself, to participate in the conversation. Where the people meet. You're one of the people. So if you have something to say, don't hesitate to join in the dialogue. I am so sorry that I can't be there at the actual launch. I am in Washington, D.C. I'd rather be with you, but here I am and here you are. So let's make a real go of this launching of a way for Evanstonians to talk to each other, to listen to each other, to make decisions together, work out issues. So this is a fantastic thing that we've never had before, and I look forward to participating as well. Have a great launch, and thanks so much for doing it.
Hello everyone, I'm State Representative LaShawn K. Ford, and I am honored to be celebrating the launch of Where the People Meet TV. Congratulations Malika, Sebastian, and Wojo on this incredible achievement. In times like these, community engagement is vital. This is a great opportunity to foster meaningful conversations and collaborations that drive positive change. Local, state, and national governments must work hand in hand with their communities. Staying engaged and informed about policies at all levels is crucial. I commend Where the People Meet TV for creating a platform that amplifies community voices. Your commitment to dialogue and engagement is inspiring. Together, we can create a better tomorrow. I look forward to being a guest on Where the People Meet TV and listening to the voices of the people. Congratulations once again, and thank you.
Aloha to Malika and Where the People Meet TV community. I'm Maya Sutoro, co-founder of the Peace Studio. I so regret that my schedule has prevented me from being with all of you in person, but I did want to make this video to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the wonderful Malika Gardner on her Peace Studio Fellowship and subsequent launch of Where the People Meet TV. At the Peace Studio, we believe in inspiring hope and catalyzing transformative social change through journalism, storytelling, and art. Malika's commitment to providing a platform for diverse voices aligns perfectly with our mission. Community engagement is not just an abstract concept. It's a necessity. Growing up, community played a pivotal role in shaping my own understanding of the world. When I was a little girl, my mom took me to small villages all across Indonesia as she worked with artists and artisans to develop cottage industries through microfinance. And it was there that I learned just how important fostering a sense of community is to building empathy, connection, and positive grassroots social change. In community, we heard so many restorative narratives and saw so many powerful solutions that such narratives help to nurture. Malika, your initiative comes at such a crucial time, especially in the challenging times we face. Your dedication to fostering meaningful conversations is commendable, and I'm really honored to share my congratulations, my energy, and my support with you. I hope to meet all of you someday soon, and I look forward to witnessing the impact of this remarkable platform in the years ahead. Mahalo.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and I'd like to congratulate you on the inaugural episode of Where the People Meet. While I really wish I could be there to celebrate in person, I applaud you for raising your voices and uplifting our communities. As your Lieutenant Governor, I encourage you to keep engaging with your communities. You are catalysts for positive change, paving the way to a brighter tomorrow for all. You know, legacies are built when we join forces and focus on a shared mission. In our case, that's supporting communities through a holistic, research-based approach. By addressing barriers in equity and justice and providing communities with critical resources and information, we make a lasting impact. As the late Congressman John Lewis once said, never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble. Thank you.
You know, back in the day, when growing up, it was considered coffee clutching when neighbors would get together at somebody's house, have a cup of coffee, and talk about the neighborhood, talk about things in general, both local and sometimes national even. And so, from our perspective, we want to know what's important to you. What do you talk about? What do you think about that you would like to have answers for?
Well, I think one of the things that's really going on around the kitchen tables at home is backroom politics, because it seems to be running all of us. And we know the backroom politics have been going on since forever, but I don't know if it's because of social media, but now all of a sudden it's exposed. It's like a time period of exposure. Are you all finding that more and more people are starting to see how these decisions are being made, and it's not pretty. It's not fair to a lot of people. It's quite disturbing, and we even have it right here in Evanston.
Yep.
The backroom politics, I think that's going around everyone's table right now.
Definitely. I mean, I always like to start off by connecting the national, state level, and local level as well, because some folks, see what's going on Fox News, CNN, and they can't really fathom that can happen in their own communities, especially in a community such as Evanston.
Amazing the way the media portrays, whether good or bad, depending upon who's the subject of the story.
Definitely. And I mean, I think that this is definitely a sore topic for some here in Evanston. It's a fresh wound, but we've had conversations over the last couple of months about Ryan Field and the development around there, commercial rezoning. And I mean, throughout that process, I mean, we saw a large scale movement starting way back in the summer of 2023, really pushing for a community benefits agreement with the university. And I know that wasn't something that they had planned to put on the table. And then it wasn't until that public pressure really grew for that to happen, to where we saw negotiations that were happening with only a handful of elected officials. There were some elected officials that talked about not even being involved at the table. And then resident input really wasn't put forward until the 11th hour, about a couple days before that agreement was ultimately signed by City Council. So I mean, like this type of behavior is quite evident at the local level as well.
Yes, with the stadium, I must say, when they first brought it up, I was actually excited about concerts coming to Evanston. I was on that side of it. But when I saw how the dealings were going to make it happen, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Yes to having concerts, because I think it'll be great for the city. And I personally like going to concerts. So I'm I'm looking forward to being able to possibly walk to a concert instead of having to drive and park and, all that. And I think it'll be very, very exciting for Evanston. But the backroom dealings, I mean, it was pretty blatant from our former counsel, corporate counsel lawyer, Nick Cummings, going to the federal court to block us out of making any decisions. And in regards to Northwestern, so that Northwestern could do whatever Northwestern wants to do, and they never have to consult with us. And no one knew that was happening. No one knew that was even going down. But it took for some community engagement, 3 active community members, and Alderperson Claire Kelly showed up at that court and blocked them and shut it down, because that was going to be a very hard decision to change. And the judge was even like, I don't feel comfortable with this decision. Like, what is this? So she dismissed it, but it was very disturbing how that played out and who was in those negotiations that sent Nick Cummings to those meetings, to the federal court to do that. Who instructed him to do that? Who's his boss? Who told him that he could do that?
Gave him the authority.
Gave him the authority to cut the people of Evanston out, the committee out of any decisions that Northwestern would make. That's when I started having a problem with it. But other than that, I am excited about the concerts. But I didn't like how it was being played.
One of my questions concerning the concerts that are going to be played there, that I wonder what the residents across the street are going to feel about it. Are they going to feel the same way as some of the residents across the fairway when Post 42 had concerts? So I mean, I understand that there are different rules of engagement that the Evanston allows for concerts to be during certain hours, so that and I mean, thinking as I go down Central Street, knowing that there are all these houses across the street, and I'm sure some of the residents are not going to be real happy with concerts. But I get it. I enjoy music just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, I used to live directly across the street from the stadium, so the Star Spangled Banner was in my bedroom when they would rehearse, and it is loud. It's like the person is standing there over your bed.
Did you stand up and salute?
Almost, right? Yes, it gets very loud. So, but hey, it's a done deal, pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'll also chime in and say that I felt, at least from the experiences that I had from talking to a number of residents that live nearby, that this really wasn't, we don't want Northwestern to build a new stadium. A lot of it had to do about the actual rezoning of the area itself, to go from a U2 district, which is the university district, to a commercial district, to where that there were a number of new things that Northwestern would be able to do. And I mean, even in that community benefits package that had come out, and there were a number of residents that would read through it and say, well, look, the language on here really shields Northwestern from a lot of legal liability from anyone coming and suing them because of the concerts, and then puts it on the city of Evanston. And it really wasn't until those residents were actively being engaged in the process,
Right.
to where some city council members said, wait a minute, okay, that's a little bit too much for us, and we don't want to then be responsible for opening that Pandora's box and not being able to close it after.
Fiscal responsibility.
Definitely.
Yeah, that stadium, that got pretty dirty and ugly. But if you all have driven by, it's pretty much demolished.
It's gone
Isn't
now.
it like pretty much done? So it's going up, it's going to be going up pretty fast. But I think it woke a lot of people up in the community.
Definitely.
All of the dealings, the decisions, the backroom deals, I think it started waking people up in the community. And then we got some hot topics happening right now. The stadium's a done deal, but that lets some people know you better start paying attention. So now we got 909 Davis.
Yes, yes. I mean, and we have a special guest that's going to be coming on soon to talk about it some more, and she's going to be able to give some really great input on it.
Yes.
But I mean, we've seen, again, time and time again, and this is another issue where there's that lack of community engagement, that lack of transparency, right? And actually working with the community. I mean, we had this JLL contract, and that is a contract with a leasing realtor that was done behind closed doors, and ultimately was ruled by the Illinois Attorney General that was invalid and it was a violation of the Open Meetings Act, which again, that residents should have been aware of this agreement. And you know, apparently we were a million miles away from it being an Open Meetings Act violation, but we arrived there.
For the Attorney General to get involved, that lets you know something's going on in Evanston. Something is going on.
Pretty serious
Yeah.
allegations.
And it takes for residents getting involved. I believe that was Mary Rosinski who got them. Absolutely. And then the Wesley property, I tried to get Alderperson Bobby Burns here to talk about the Wesley property because those people are being moved out, inconvenienced, don't know where they're going. I mean, it's a lot. But our special guest coming out, she can speak to all of this, and she's a fighter in our community. Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes. So let's get her out here. So we're going to go to break and thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back. About to bring out a very special guest, you all. I don't know, how many of you watched the city council meetings? Got you? Yeah? Yes, yes. I love watching the city council, one, you know, because I want to know what's going on, you get the information, but I love seeing strong leaders. I love it when they care about us and they go in there and they fight for us. And this special guest that we're bringing out today is one of those people I love to watch on city council because she's always fighting for us, always fighting for that transparency.
Amen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So without further ado, we're going to bring out Alderperson and National Vice President of the city's League of Cities, which she'll come out and explain that. She just got appointed, which is a huge deal. Claire Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Welcome,
Thank you.
Claire. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful to be here. Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell us about this appointment you just received.
So it's vice chair of the Fair Committee of the National League of Cities. That's a finance and administration intergovernmental committee, so relations committee. So that's what it is. Not quite the vice president of the National League of Cities, but nevertheless a really important appointment, important committee that I'm very proud to serve on. That advocates for cities nationwide, looks for policies to help support our cities. So I'm also on the board of the University Communities Council, which I'm also very proud to serve on. That looks at ways to build the relationships between universities and their host cities.
Well, I can understand why you're part of the whole finance for the nation because you break down the Evanston city budget with a fine-tooth comb. Like you're like, why are we spending this much money on this? We're spending this on consultants. What are we doing? What are we doing? I love it. I love watching you break it down.
I will say too, you come from a unique perspective none of us here are elected officials, and you are on the ground for a lot of these conversations and complex and, often controversial conversations that we have here in the city of Evanston. And we just touched a little bit about, JLL contract. And again, that's Jones, Lang, and LaSalle, about that contract. Can you tell us a little bit about how we got here and
Okay, we'll cut right to that, Chase. Okay.
Where we are right now.
But I did want to sort of dovetail a little bit on your mentioning budget, because really everything is so involved with budget, and it's so important. Everything, that really is the sort of the blueprint for our city's priorities and how we operate. So it's so important to be involved in the budget process, and JLL definitely, and where we've gone from there. It has an enormous impact on our budget. So the JLL contract, so that came about back in October of last year, and I was really broadsided by this. It was in a closed session. I think I can say this now because it's come out. In a closed session, this was brought to us by staff, this idea of directing our city manager to engage with JLL to go out and look at buildings to lease for the city. And we'd never spoken about this before, so I thought, wait a second, should we have this discussion first publicly to determine whether or not this is something that is of interest and necessary? It really concerned me because I knew once we contracted with JLL, that train was going. And likely, next thing we know, we were going to be, recommending moving the city out. And sure enough, that is what transpired very quickly. It came to just one special order of business, which really, really surprised me. And that was a no-bid contract. And yes, that was not ratified publicly. So when you make final decisions like that, you really have to bring those back. And it doesn't matter if there's money involved or not. Those final decisions have to be ratified publicly. And so that didn't happen. That was of deep concern to me. I'm glad that there was a resident who, picked up on that in the media and, doubled down to really make inquiries with the Attorney General's office as to how that transpired. So that should have been a bid contract. There's a lot of reasons that you want a contract like that to go out for bid. The commission, for example, there's huge commissions involved in that. And a lot of times there's competition on commissions or how much they'll throw back at their client. When you're talking about such a large scale lease, again, commissions that well exceed $1 million. So usually what I've learned is that, that is one of the things that they compete with. But we'll return 20% or 30%, sometimes up to 40% of a commission will be given back to the client. So there's a lot of reasons, and there's the whole process of, anyway, there's a lot involved. And definitely, in my opinion, we should have put that out for bid, and we didn't.
When you mentioned about the giving back, back in my younger era, they used to call that kickbacks, which I'm not sure if that's exactly the same thing or what you're discussing, but it's a lot of different associations of the use of words. Growing up as a young man versus now, it's like I mentioned about the need for transparency, because we backroom dealings are not the normal.
Right. I don't think it's quite, so it sounds like sometimes they call it throwback, but I think kickback is often done sort of it's associated with an illegal transaction, whereas this is something
under the table.
Under the table. And this isn't usually. So I did ask. I sent right out, I said, are we going to be, has JLL offered any percent back to the city? Did anybody ask? And I just got a no for an answer. But that's a little more par for course in terms of, from my understanding, when folks bid on contracts. That's some of the language that's in there. It goes back to the client, not back to an individual, but in this case it would be the city. And we still don't know what the commission is, and that's also a problem for me. We should know. We're the client. We should know what the commission is that JLL is getting from, I think it's called Red River, the property owner of 909. And there's a reason for that. It could be a conflict of interest if you don't know.
Absolutely.
You want to know what they're getting. I'm still kind of stunned and shocked that we still don't know. I asked for that too. And I'm not saying it's anything, but this is basic information that you give your client. And
Right.
so I'm a little bit surprised that, that we haven't.
We used to have the saying about can't tell the players without a scorecard.
Right.
So are we looking to purchase that building, or we just?
So no, so JLL negotiated a 15-year lease, which is for our temporary relocation. If you ask me, there's nothing temporary about a 15-year lease. It's a 15-year lease with a 7-year opt-out at $8.8 million. So we're committed, out of the gate, even if we decide not to go there after 1 year, upwards of $20 million. So, and anybody will tell you, like right now, this is the weakest the office, the market for office buildings has been in decades and decades. It's a tenant's market. So if we needed a short-term lease, that's available. And so JLL brought back what were called preliminary responses to an RFP for office space, and these were you're supposed to take those then kind of negotiate and get a better deal. Well, we didn't. We just took, here's the 3 responses, and we went with what was in essence sort of the cheapest in terms of 15-year leases, as opposed to saying, okay, we really need something shorter. Can we get something, and negotiate back and forth. I know Rotary. Well, there are options to go short term, absolutely. So, this is, I'm extremely concerned about this. I think it's also. Yeah, so your question about are we going to buy it? I tried to work on damage control. Once we were committing to a 15-year, I would like to have seen this go out and get an option to purchase. At that point, if you get an option to purchase, you can protect your investment in terms of we're going to be investing upwards of $6 million in building out this building that we're only leasing. So an option to purchase is something that we could have negotiated. I'm sure we could have negotiated if we had said, listen, we'll only sign this lease if we can have an option to purchase, but there just wasn't the will to do that. So I'm certain, again, given the environment for office space, that is something that would have been available to us, and that would have helped protect our investment.
Yeah, and I want to add too. I mean, we're talking, especially with the show that we have right now, about community engagement, right, and participation in local government, and going back to what Rojo was talking about earlier, the idea of kickbacks. If you as a resident are receiving limited information about a potential deal, right? You go and you read the paper and you say, wait a minute, the city just signed this 15-year lease. When did this happen, right? And this is the first time that you're hearing of it. And there's not a lot of information that's available to you as a resident. And there's not, when you ask those questions, whether it's at city council, to your elected officials, and you're not getting an answer that's relatively in detail, that leads to a lot of rumors circulating. You have folks that believe, well, is this a little bit more malicious with their intent? And when I do have conversations with elected officials and we talk about this type of behavior by some folks that are in our community, and I try to push back and say, well, look, you've created an atmosphere where folks have to fill the void of a lack of information. And that can often be done with things that they hear from their neighbors, that they hear from other folks in the community, because there is that lack of information. And instead of just engaging the public from the beginning and saying, look, we envision having this 15-year lease because if we decide to renovate the Civic Center, it's going to take us X amount of years, or if we decide to build a new one, it's going to take us X amount of years. That's why we have this set in place, et cetera, et cetera. That quells a lot of the fears that community members have. And it also builds that trust between city government and the people that they are elected to serve.
Absolutely. I think part of the problem is it doesn't take 15 years to build. Like I just in our ward where the old Burger King was, that went up in like a year and a half. Yeah. So I don't think that argument would work. So I think there could have been roadblocks. What it feels like to residents, and I will say to me that there was this predetermined outcome that was happening without that open public discussion. So we had this discussion in closed doors about engaging with JLL. And then next thing we knew, I only found out a couple days before that we were actually voting on that, taking action on one of those leases. And that happened in 45 minutes. So yes, to your point, when things don't happen publicly, a lot of questions, people do start to think, well, what is going on? Why were we kept in the dark? Why didn't this come up through committee? Why weren't there discussions? So I think it's reasonable to be wondering.
Can you give us any type of indication, because again, we're leasing this property, what's next in terms of the Civic Center? I mean, this is a building that has been historic. I mean, it is named after one of our strongest former mayors of Evanston, right?
First black mayor of
Yes, yes. I mean, and this is a massive swath of land. So what do we do next as a city? And how do we ensure that, again, the same issues that we've seen now with Ryan Field and the lack of community engagement there, and just the lack of transparency around this JLL contract, how do we ensure that doesn't happen again with the Civic Center?
So, I mean, that's a great question. With the Civic Center right now, I'm not sure, but I think a lot of it involves sort of a truth and reconciliation. Like, let's really put everything on the table and understand, why was this decision made to rush this through? There's no rush. What are the real costs in rehabbing the Civic Center? So I don't believe it, for us to remain there, that it takes $65 million. I know there's a lot of government, from the National League of Cities, I know there's a lot of government grants right now, federal grants for reimbursement for installation of geothermal. We weren't given any of those sort of numbers in terms of real costs that we could have saved. And, you know, I got into this, I had never planned a long time ago of ever being a council member, but because of the way the city was spending money that I didn't feel was really reflecting the interest, our interest here in protecting the city and protecting so that even, you know, middle class people can remain here. And I just think, you know, what we're seeing now is, you know, like I said, upwards of $20 million easily, if not $30 million, with nothing to show for it. This is in rent. And could that money, imagine if we had taken that instead and invested it in the Civic Center, we'd have something to show for it, something.
And that amount of money, the taxpayers have to foot this bill.
That's right.
I'd be madder than a wet hen, I'll tell you that much.
I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated. Like I said, in the last ditch sort of damage control, tried to, you know, see if we could at least go out and get the option to purchase. So at least we'd have that building if we're going to invest that sort of money.
Yeah.
And you know, that building was bought under, I think it was being sold for in the 40 millions. It was bought by this New Jersey firm for, I think, around 27.8 million. And now it's so hard to lease these days. So as soon as, you know, our city manager signs that lease, now you got a 15-year lease with a very credit-worthy, you know, tenant for 15 years for 50,000 square feet. That just went way up, right? What they can turn around now and sell that for, I mean, way up. So over 10 million easily in a profit on top of what they bought it for, if not more. So, yeah, you know, I would have preferred that we had looked at the Rotary at least. You know, they're a partner in our community. They actually pay property tax. We know they're not going anywhere. It would be nice to have supported Rotary, but I still question whether we really needed to leave at all. And again, I'm always looking at that bottom line for our taxpayers. People are struggling here. People want to remain here. People remain here. You know, they'll stay in Evanston, be house poor or home poor just to stay in this lovely community because we all care about it so much. But it's getting harder and harder, and you know, people are leaving because it's so costly. So,
Yep.
I mean, the 909 building is a beautiful building. I've been in there, but I am concerned with how it's going to impact the residents in terms of the taxes, and it just seems so unnecessary. We're always rushing.
right, what's the
Always
rush?
rushing. Like, what is the rush? They rush to reparations. They rush to Robert Brown. They rush to. It's like always a rush, rush, rush. I don't understand that. Why we can never take the time to look at all options, different choices that's going to be best for the residents. But
Right. There was no reason to have rushed this.
what's going on with the Wesley property?
Yeah, so Wesley, that's a very disturbing and upsetting situation. I think you probably know that the residents were given a notice by our city manager over a month ago now, and they were told that they had to, that the city was requiring that they vacate immediately their homes. And nothing before that, just this letter that showed up at their doors that they had to vacate immediately. So that's, you know, it's very, as you can imagine, that would be traumatic, right? To be in your home
Sure.
and suddenly told with no warning ahead of time. So this is deeply concerning to me. There was no court order for this. There was no statement of violation issued ahead of time, along with the correction order, which is usually given where you state the violations and what the property owner or the manager needs to do to remedy and to correct the situation with a time frame. Like that should be given. You have this much time to fix this, this, and this. I haven't seen that. A month ago, I emailed a list of these questions asking for the correction order, for the statement of violation, for the inspections, and I haven't received anything back. So I'm very concerned about the way this transpired. Normally there's a court order. Normally, like I said, there's a P&A, a property needs assessment of what needs to be done. I've seen none of this. The residents haven't seen this. Why, as a city who we're all about affordable housing and about our low-income residents and protecting our Evanston residents, why, as a council member, weren't we solicited, asked to provide funding to help, whatever repairs were needed? We were asked to pass, to approve $4 million for the same management, which was HODC, to build a new building on Church, yet we were never asked for funds to help do the necessary repairs on these 3 buildings where tenants are currently living. Some have lived there for 20, 30 years, and they're suddenly on a dime being asked to vacate. So I don't think this process, I'm very concerned about this process. I'm very concerned about the residents. I mean, it's incredibly traumatic, and I don't understand how the city you can't just go up and give someone a letter and tell them they have to vacate.
And this is considered eminent domain?
It looks like that. It feels that way, but that's not what they're using, is eminent domain. But I don't know.
For people that don't understand what eminent domain is, like Comiskey Park, when they wanted to build across the street in Chicago, they said eminent domain, and all these houses, people were given nowhere near what their houses were worth in order to build the cellular field.
Right. So, I mean, some folks have speculated that it feels a little bit like eminent domain in disguise, but it is. I mean, I don't think it's lost on anybody that it's in a TIF area. But either way, I know there are some, definite structural problems. But and that was a month ago. The residents were given this letter that you have to vacate immediately. Here we are a month later. So was it? Did they need to vacate immediately? So, so this is. I'm deeply concerned about this situation also.
So who wants that property?
And I've spent a lot of this issue in particular has been extraordinarily close to me. I mean, I lost a best friend who would be in the same group of individuals. These are lower income Black residents who are in their late stages in life. I mean, they are cashing their Social Security checks, and this is the place that they can afford in Evanston. I mean, there are folks that are living in that building that have lived there for 3 generations. And throughout this process, it is incredibly traumatic that these folks, where some of them have no support systems whatsoever, and now they're tasked with the burden of, what do I do with my life? I'm 70 years old, and I pay, $500 a month to live here. I can't live anywhere in Evanston with $500 a month, let alone live anywhere in Chicago or around the Chicagoland area for that price. So if my family is not here, where do I go? And talking to these residents, again, who have been great members of the community. I mean, this is an area of the city that has had problems consistently, and they've cleaned up their community and they've bonded together as a family. And again, going back to this lack of communication or community engagement, where you have residents who live there that truly don't understand what is going on and say, why do I need to move? I've seen problems in my building for the last 5 years, and I've complained about those problems. I've written complaints to the managing director, the property owner, and none of it has gotten fixed. And now you're telling me that I need to leave my home.
Exactly, and there's not any creative sort of alternative response. Like, what about a limited equity home ownership, where we give these homes and then the city invests in the repairs? There's so many ways, or land trust. but we're just looking to just shove them out, and again, on a dime, without going through the steps of, like I said, a statement of violation along with the corrections and a time frame by which it needs to be done. None of that happened. It was just like, you got to get out now. And again, no legal, no court order.
Right.
And so, yes, and it's a lovely block, right? This is their neighborhood.
They're showing no just cause as to why.
I'm going to come out if anyone has a comment. Oh, yeah.
Of what America has done. And Evanston is really not any difference in terms of urban removal. Back in the 60s and 70s, they referred it to as urban removal. And that's what I'm hearing again. And this is another example. We did it with the indigenous people in this country, and now we're doing it again in small communities, large communities. So my issue is, and I know you've got the details, how do we stop that? What do you do to because this is ongoing historically. And people of color, low-income people experience this on an ongoing basis throughout the country, not just Evanston.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I think part of it is this. Thank you all for hosting, these shows. And Malika, you've always done such a really stellar job of getting information out and perspectives out to the public. I think that's definitely a key to all this, is making people aware. Well, I think so I think it's about educating. We don't have to. So, for example, I mentioned limited equity home ownership or land trust. There's a lot of type of zoning and ways that we can approach these situations, but I think people need to be educated about that so that we can make these sort of demands on our government. There are ways, and I think it's also about demanding transparency. And I think it's about having people sitting, elected who are really about transparency. And I know that's a tough piece to say, make sure we have folks elected who are committed to that. But I think in large part it's about educating the community about options, to your point, so that we don't continue to drive out our lower income, our Black and brown population from Evanston. That's in large part why I ran, because I could see the demographics changing quickly, expenditures that made no sense in terms of Evanston, the interests of Evanston residents. So I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but I think it does take all of us together. It really does.
Thank you so much, Claire, for joining us. It was only right to have the First Ward Alderman, because we're in the First Ward right now. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will definitely have you back.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for fighting for the people always.
Thank you all. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Again, want to thank our audience for being here and providing some fantastic questions for us to talk about.
Yeah, those are some good questions.
I know. And it often, again, going back to the roots of this show, is community engagement and making sure that people feel like they can ask these types of questions. And even though that they may be uncomfortable, a little bit difficult, that again, that we're still having them.
Exactly.
You are bound to ask questions of your leaders. So, and it just goes to prove that even in the civilian world, that it behooves residents to ask these questions.
we stay positive, we do the research. As you can see, I was like, we got to get clear on, she will bring the facts. We're all about the research, we're all about a positive impact, and sometimes you got to face the hard conversations, the ugly of it, to get to what's right. What would you say we all agreed on today?
I'd say a lot. And I mean, some of it starts with the idea of community engagement and transparency. That in order to effectively have a city, a state, a country that works for the people that live in it, that we need to be willing to participate in these systems. And then in turn, from our elected officials, we have to be transparent with the folks that they are elected to serve.
You have to read between the lines, you have to learn to do the research, and you have to think for yourself.
I like it.
I like that. I think we'll end right there on that note. Well, Joe.
Fantastic
All
point.
right. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Be sure to stay tuned. More with Where the People Meet TV.